Hi, everyone. My name is Max McNamara, and today I'll be discussing the often overlooked value of screenplays and screenwriting in general as a form of writing. When most people think of screenplays, they think of what is essentially a blueprint, something that lets the director and actors know what a scene looks like, what needs to be said in it, and what's happening. In this sense, screenplays are only seen by most of the general public as the first push of a snowball down a hill. Everything builds off it as the filmmaking process goes forward, growing and growing until the final product is created. But to the general public, that's all they are, a start. Something so bare bones and basic that only exists to efficiently get dialogue and setting across to everyone involved in the filmmaking process. However, I'm here to tell you that's not always the case. While yes, in some cases, this dry, borderline corporate way of writing is all that's required to get the job done, most screenwriters put an exorbitant amount of time, effort, and dedication into what they write, especially when it comes to creating the film's symbolism and visual iconography. Of course, it's ultimately the director's job to manage the symbolism of certain shots, but they wouldn't even know where to start if it weren't for the screenwriter. Without that initial imagery written down on the page, there would be no roadmap. In writing a script, a screenwriter has to think about the story's themes, how those themes will bleed through dialogue, imagery, and characterization, in addition to a multitude of other things. And that's not even mentioning the research a screenwriter might have to do. For example, if the story of a film centers around someone like a police officer, the screenwriter can't just guess what they do if they're trying to achieve a certain sense of accuracy. They need to know that job like it was theirs, inside and out. Now, you might be thinking, how is this any different from what a normal writer has to do? Regardless of whether you're writing a book or a poem, if you want it to be accurate, you need to know what you're talking about. And that's the point. The effort it takes to write a screenplay is often overlooked because filmmaking is a collaborative process. Screenwriting is the first step, as I mentioned before. Everything is built around the screenplay, of course, but as production goes on, it gets buried by the visuals and performances and the score and anything else the audience can latch onto. Even if they're thinking about how good the plot was, they're only going to associate that with the movie itself. No one ever comes out of a movie thinking, wow, that screenplay was so well adapted. But they should. Everything people love about movies begins with the written word, and more audiences should acknowledge that. A screenplay might not be as accessible or fancy as a novel or a book of poetry, and it might ultimately serve a larger process, but that doesn't mean it isn't a form of art in its own right. In order for a screenplay to be adapted, it must first be interpreted by an audience. Director and actors need to be able to engage with it in such a way that they're able to pull out themes and ideas in which they can frame the story. For example, actors need to understand their characters inside and out in order to best portray them, something that wouldn't be possible without the intentionality of the script and the dialogue within it. If a screenplay were just a blueprint, as some people believe it to be, this active interpretation wouldn't be possible. Without the intentionality of the writer, the actors would just be regurgitating dribble. Because movies are so dialogue heavy, every word in the screenplay needs to tell the audience something about a character. There's no third person narrator can give them any insight to who these people are. The intentionality of the script guides the direction, the visuals, and the performances of the film. If a script was just a simple blueprint, everybody else involved with the filmmaking process would have a much harder time figuring out what to do. If people cannot interpret it like they could a book, or any other piece of writing for that matter, script has failed. If you cannot see the movie just by reading the screenplay, there isn't a movie to be made. With that in mind, the next time you go and see a movie, remember that the screenplay is just as important as the performances or the movie's visual flair. Everything you love about movies is owed to the written word, as no part of the filmmaking process can progress before the screenplay paves the path forward.